We are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show. Hi, and welcome to another Evolve to Win show with Heather and Paul.
If you're tuning in for the first time, this is a weekly show where we bring you everything we can in terms of helping you to succeed in this fast-paced environment. And today we want to talk to those of you who are hesitant to speak up at meetings. And we're going to explore a couple of areas. We're going to help you find out why you hesitate. And we're also going to talk to you about strategies so that we can hear your voice. So First things first. We've got to start with awareness. There are too many people out there who are not speaking up in meetings or otherwise. And let's go over some of the reasons why people might hesitate to speak up. What do you think?
Well, I know I'm somebody that is, in a lot of cases, depending on the situation that I'm in, I'm very hesitant to speak up.
Okay, so give me one of the reasons why you're hesitant to speak up.
One of the reasons is that I sometimes need to process a little bit more. So unless I've prepared properly for that meeting, I don't think on my feet that well to be able to feel comfortable enough about giving an opinion. And, I guess it's always about am I going to look stupid? Am I going to, am I going to say something that's not right? Are people going to look at me? So it's a lot about just my ego, know?
Yeah. Okay, good. So I think you actually gave 2 or 3 reasons all bunched in there. One of them is not feeling fully prepared, right? So there are those of you out there who don't want to actually share your voice until you've had time to kind of research, think about it, gather the facts, answer the questions. And your thought and your feeling is, well, I can always voice my opinion after I've done the research. But the reality is you really only get that one chance at the meeting. Once that meeting's over, then decisions might already be made, right? So one of those, keep that thought in mind. If you know you're someone who wants to have all the facts, all the information, that could be a really good excuse to keep quiet. Now, another one you said is fear of looking bad, fear of looking stupid, saying the wrong thing. And you know what? The reason we chose this topic is because I was working with a client last week, and I was sharing with her one of the programs that we're launching early next year, which is a program for HR professionals to help them continue to accelerate their career. And I was talking to her about the group format. And when I finished talking to her about the whole program, she was super excited about it. But when I said, and what do you think about for you? Are you interested? And you know what she said to me?
What?
She said, well, you know what? I can see how it would be great for my boss and for a lot of other people I know, but probably for me, not so much, because I kind of like the one-on-one scenario instead of being with a group of people. Yeah. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, I just think that I would hesitate to actually speak up on that group program. I said, okay, I got it. That's why we're doing the group program. It's a safe environment. Learn to share your voice when you're in a safe space.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. And so another reason too is, sometimes meetings are filled with alpha people and, or in our speak, more like a dominant behavioral style. Mm-hmm. And those people tend to take up a lot of the bandwidth in a meeting.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get your opinion in edgewise.
Yeah, can't get a word in edgewise. So I want you to think about if that's one of your reasons why you don't speak up at meetings. I can't get a word in because people are always dominating. Well, you think about, is that really true though? Because if other people are able to speak, they're able to get their word in. Why is it that you don't, right? So sometimes it's because we were taught growing up not to interrupt. And so you're just waiting your turn. And by the time you're ready to talk, they've moved on and they're like 3 topics down the road.
Or if you just start to say, you're like, well, and then next thing you know, somebody just, railroads right over you.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes it's about really understanding if you're feeling like you can't get your word in, just recognize maybe you're just not being as dominant as you could be to get your word in.
Yeah, and right? I think this is a good point because a lot of meetings nowadays are virtual as well. So you have Zoom meetings or Skype meetings, and then you have your ones, where you're maybe in your workplace. And there's a little bit different etiquette, I think, with it's a little bit slower paced, I find, on the Skype or the Zoom, just because there's a little bit of delay. So knowing when to speak. But they do have the little button where you can raise your hand, or you can just put your hand up. So if people are on camera, then at least you can, indicate that you're, normally in a meeting, like a live meeting, you're not going to be like, can you please listen to me?
I've actually had people do that. I've actually had people just sit there with their hand up, which, quite honestly, if that's the only way that you will insert your voice, do it, right? But I agree with you. There are different mechanisms. If you're on virtual, definitely use the hand raise. Use the chat if you need to, so that the moderator will call on you. However, depending on your moderator and how on top of things they are, they may or may not pick up on it. So don't let that be your only method. Right. All right. Another reason that people hesitate to speak up at meetings is fear of retribution. So have you ever spoken your mind before and then you felt like you got slapped down? Have you felt like, or somebody got mad at you because you spoke up? So if that's happened to you in the past, don't use your past and put it in your present, because that messes everything up. We'll talk about, we're going to give you strategies in just a moment for how to overcome that. But just recognize if you are concerned about speaking up because you're worried that your boss or someone else in the meeting will get mad at you, which is sort of connected with fear of creating conflict. There are a lot of people out there who we know who do conflict averse.
Conflict averse for sure. The other one too, I think, is what was I thinking of? Oh, come on.
Fear of losing your train of thought.
Yeah, is running on too long. So, when you're, so some people, when they get excited about an idea and they're like, I can't wait to talk about it. And if you're not prepared properly and got it all concise, it can turn into just a long run-on sentence, and just like what I'm doing right now. No.
Yeah. So, but that's a really good one, right? So if you don't feel like you're a powerful communicator, you could have a fear of how it's going to come across. Am I going to be able to even make my point? Because I tend to just ramble on.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that one as well. I think we've covered most of the reasons here. I think there's one more. So just like you have some people who say, I'm, concerned because I can't get a word in because people are dominating all the time. It's always the same people. You might have some people who say, well, I don't really want to speak up because I don't want to be the one who dominates the conversation. And generally, if you're worried about that and you don't normally speak up at meetings, we never are threatened by you dominating because you tend to keep your voice quiet. Yeah. So of course, there's a balance, and there are definitely some people who over contribute in meetings. That's a separate podcast. Right now, we're just going to stay focused on those who fail to share their voice.
Yeah, because the point is that if you're somebody that doesn't necessarily share when you should be, or a lot in meetings, your voice, you have, especially if you've been in this industry that you're in, you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and your opinions are valid. And sometimes they can kick off, some other ideas that can turn into like incredible things for business. So it's, don't ever discount what you're thinking. It's probably very valuable.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. It's a great point to start into the strategies for how we can help you share your voice. Is just believe in you. Believe that your opinion matters. It's valuable. We want to hear that opinion. Your boss wants to hear that opinion, so do your colleagues. And too often, it's those who have the most technical skill and expertise who tend to withhold because they want to make sure they get it right. So we want to hear from you, and that's part of the reason we're doing this episode. Okay, so one of the very first, my number one strategy for how to get yourself in a place of sharing your voice more often.
Okay, I'm going to write these down.
Write them down, because you're going to then go back and share them with everybody after the fact. Number one strategy, set your intention. So a lot of times you get into a meeting and you've just run from your last meeting and you haven't really thought about what you're going to share in this meeting. So first and foremost, if you know that you are someone who doesn't often speak up at meetings, set your intention to share at the next meeting. And then we're going to talk about different ways you can do that if you're still freaked out by it. Yeah. But intention means everything. So for those of you, like Paul's first example, I feel like maybe I don't have all the information in, or I don't want to get it wrong. Find out what the topic of the meeting is about, and do some prep work in advance so that you come to the table with an opinion that you feel good about, you feel confident, and you can share. right? Because part of it's just starting so that you build that muscle and you get used to sharing in meetings. So
yeah, if you're not used to winging it, or if you are winging it and it ends up turning into just a long strung out, not very concise opinion, then you may want to consider that.
yeah. And there are some people who are going, you know what? My boss has never in the history of ever given me an agenda for any meeting, so it's always a surprise.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then be proactive. Ask your boss prior to the meeting, hey, do you have some ideas on any topics that you want to discuss? Because I'd like to do a little preparation. Is there some area that you want me to speak on at the meeting? So, get proactive, ask some questions, okay?
Got it.
Another strategy is when you go to speak up and you're feeling a little bit lack of confidence or you're uncertain, instead of making a statement, ask a question. It's one of the easiest ways to contribute in a meeting and also to stop people in their tracks and get them thinking. Ask a really powerful question. So you can take whatever statement you are going to make and turn it into a question instead. And it feels a little bit easier than just making the emphatic statement.
Like,
so
how would I do that, Heather?
Okay, well, if we are having
I was just asking you the question just to.
Oh, perfect. That was good. That worked. I'm like, okay, you stopped me cold there. I have to come up with a scenario. Yeah, how would you do that? Why? So can you tell me?
Why would you do that?
Can you tell me a little bit about why you think that is the most important strategy? Can you tell me more about that? Can you help me understand why this certain aspect makes sense? Have you thought about this certain aspect? So there's a lot of different ways you can frame those questions.
Right. Have you ever been to a networking event where you talked to somebody and they asked you so many questions and you never really asked them one question, and at the end you're like, that person's like the coolest person I've ever met in my entire life. They're so interesting.
And it's because they were interested,
questions.
Right? That's what makes them
Yeah,
interesting.
no, because they're asking questions about you, or they're asking questions about whatever your opinions are. And yeah,
exactly. So using questions is seriously one of the easiest and most effective meeting participation strategies you could ever come up with. So practice asking some questions. And before you get, if you're not quite ready to do that, but you want to start practicing, in your head throughout the meeting, think of what questions you could ask. And when one hits you and you like it, just throw it out there and just see what happens, because it'll probably create some really good discussion. One of the other aspects of speaking up at a meeting is really getting yourself set for not deferring to others. So a lot of times I'll see people who have an opinion, but if their boss's opinion is different from their opinion, they're like, oh, I'm definitely not going to share that now. But sometimes it's the willingness to take a contrary position that provides the most unbelievable healthy conflict, which is so needed, especially, we are moving so fast in business right now. If you're not really exploring all aspects, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. So I would say don't defer. Your opinion is valid, as we said. You've got a different perspective. Think about this. I don't care if you're, number of levels down from the CEO. You have a perspective that others do not have. Tell it like you see it. Share your thoughts, share your insights. I mean, no one can ever say that that's wrong. You're not wrong. They may not go in the direction that you ask them to go, but you can share valuable feedback and insight from where you see things.
Yeah, and there's a lot of leaders out there, a lot of owners, presidents, CEOs that can sometimes run the business like a dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their way or the highway.
Because they're dominant.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're missing out a lot of opportunity not asking for the contribution from others. So, hopefully if you're somebody like that, you are asking for contribution, you are asking people to open up and to give you opinions on it. I mean, if there's one thing, especially like in the political debate in what we're living in right now, what's really interesting is when you see two really smart people having a debate about issues, and it's amazing because they actually understand what's, both parts of it. And so just like in a meeting, to be able to have, if you're going to rebut, the owner of the business, the president, whatever, make sure that you've thought it through and make sure that you have, that you truly believe in your opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also doing it in a very respectful way, right? Especially if you're going to take issue with with your boss or someone who's in a different level. you know what, it doesn't matter who you're taking issue with. Always be respectful, of course. One of the ways to show some sort of respect or deference is you can use softeners. So instead of just saying, that's wrong, and let me tell you why, you could possibly say, have you thought about, and then share your opinion. So you can soften your opinion at times where you're not softening what your belief is, but you're just sort of, you know, making it a little less in your face than you're stupid, you got that wrong. Of course, you'd never say that.
Or just the, you know, the simple word of, you know, if I don't believe in your ideas or opinions and I say, but, you know, just throw the but word in, it kind of, you know,
negates
everything that you've said before.
Yeah. So
then,
don't ever say, Paul, you have some really good thoughts and I like what you had to say, but now you just like forget about everything good, right? So stand on your own, right? Just keep your opinion your opinion. One other aspect, another easy way to contribute, especially if you're just trying to get your feet wet and you know you haven't been a contributor, when you hear someone else's opinion and you totally believe it and you buy into it, speak up by showing your support for their opinion, and please give your own perspective on why that opinion is a good opinion, right?
Right.
So it's another way for you to very safely come in, practice speaking up and sharing your voice. Paul, you had also said that one of the fears that people have is, what if I don't have a clear enough thought and I start rambling on?
Mm-hmm.
So as you're thinking about what you want to say, I think it would be hugely valuable if you could just take a moment and think about what it is you want to say. Can I frame this in a sentence? Just say it concisely, say it clearly, say it directly, and say it in a sentence. Because if you can say, here's what I believe, or here's what I see, or here's what I think, and then you can add some supporting information to it, that would be much more powerful than talking all around in circles and then summing it up.
And
right?
that made me think of the old 80-20 rule. So in the 80-20, so you have an idea that you want to share, you have an opinion that you want to share. Everything you're thinking about, if you can break it down into 20%, instead of sharing the 100%, share just the 20% and see what kind of feedback you get from that.
Yeah.
If then you need supporting information for it, that's the 80%, then bring that into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great example. So we've given you a lot of different strategies just now for how to get started or how to, you know, really take your sharing to the next level. I'll tell you that I'm working with a senior leader right now. He's a vice president and trying to get to senior vice president level. And there are just a couple of areas we're working with him on his executive presence. Mm-hmm. And I just talked to the president a couple of weeks back and asked for his feedback on, okay, continue to tell me what you're seeing that's working and what's the next level. And the one thing he said is, you know, he tends to acquiesce a little too quickly. So if one of his, you know, colleagues or especially his boss says it should be this way, he doesn't stand his ground and fight for what he sees. So sometimes you question, like, so what really is your stance?
Right.
So I just want you to, I just want you to consider, if you see something clearly and you know that you are good at what you do and you're an expert in your industry or you've done it for a number of years, or you're seeing something from a perspective that others don't see it, if you have a position and you have a belief, someone else has a different belief, don't just roll over and stop sharing and quiet down. You know, continue to actually stand for what you believe in. You know, that's a lot of what leadership is really being willing to share your voice. And quite frankly, if you have a seat at the table, you need to be sharing your voice. If you don't have a seat at the table, you need to be sharing your voice so you can get a seat at the table, right? So bottom line, think about the reasons why you don't share your voice and see which strategies we shared you think might work best for you.
Thank you for joining us for another Evolve to Win show with Heather and Paul.
And if you haven't connected with us yet, please go to heatherchristie.com. You can sign up there for our leadership list where we provide lots of resources to help you be as successful as you can be in life and in business.
Thanks for watching.
Have
and
an
thanks
awesome day.
for listening.